So I'm at the bus here. I think the next things I'm going to be doing here are closing off this area. It's pretty chilly out right now, below freezing. I'm going to be closing the wall off here. I've got hardware in this box, some heavy-duty drawer slides I'm going to make a sliding door out of with plywood. I've got a pull for that, pocket door pull. So I'm going to build the enclosure, roughing it in here, up off the couch. I'm going to build the step right here and over here. So if I can get that done this weekend, along with possibly installing the diesel heater in the back, I'll be well on my way. At that point, I'll be able to paint with the diesel heater warming up the inside of the bus so that I can get the ceiling done. I'm going to be priming and painting the ceiling with a flat white paint. So it's a little too cold out right now for paint, but if I get the bus warmed up, we'll be in business. So these are the drawer slides I got. They're awfully heavy, 30-inch slides, so they'll work out well. If I put them up against here, you'll see that they're pretty much the right dimension to create a door all the way across. And then I've got the pocket door pull here. I don't know if you could see that in the bag. I took it out of its Amazon packaging, but a little pull for a pocket door. Looks to be about a 2x4 in width. So I've cut some pieces of 2x3. Then I'm going to insulate between them. And those are going to be spacer blocks so that I can screw plywood in. We've got to think about the fastening of this. I think everything's going to kind of be held in by the bunk, or held tight to the front by the bunk. I'm starting to build this front section so that I can make it airtight and get the wall here built up against the above the windshield. Right here, below this window, I'm planning on building a little bit of a lip or a tiny shelf to kind of frame that out, so it won't be this ugly when it's done. So anyhow, I'm going to keep going. I've got to cut some plywood pieces and put some insulation up in here. So I cleaned off the shelf with the shop vac, and I've started using this Osb Clad Insulation. What that's going to do for me is allow me to basically form a unit between the 3/4 ply that's going to go up and the insulation with some screws, and then I'm going to pocket screw the 3/4 ply at the bottom into this, and then eventually I'll put a piece of plywood here. There's going to be a shelf coming out over the driver area a little bit, probably about this far out, if I had to guess, and that's going to allow for possibly a computer monitor. Might be at the bottom of that, because I'm going to have this be my office. I might have it hinged down over the steering wheel. But also just for storing things, a bookshelf, etc., decorations. There's going to be some kind of a cabinet or shelf here. So anyhow, I'm continuing to put insulation in, and then I'm going to cut a sheet of plywood to go all the way across. It's going to be 27.5 inches wide by 84.5. And it'll finish up just under the window up top in the front, so at the level that there's going to be a shelf. And then at that point, I'll be able to screw this bunk all the way in into that plywood, and then I'll be able to block it behind me here. I'll be able to block it into the wall here, above, below, and to the side here to lock it in place. And then it'll be very secure. I'm making some progress with this insulation here underneath. I've got another couple pieces to push in from up above, and then cut some up above, and I'll be ready to put a piece of plywood in behind here. So I've got the insulation on the front wall here. I've got some blocks that I'm going to screw into the bunk once it's pushed up against it with really long screws. That's going to be extra support off the angle iron. And the plywood sheet that's about to go up here will also provide some support off the shelf of metal above the windshield, spreading that force along the whole length so it doesn't crack the windshield if somebody's laying up here. So anyway, I'm about to cut a piece of plywood to serve as a backer here. It's going to go up to just the top of that insulation and be a sort of a ledge to screw a shelf into. We'll just use some corner breaks, brackets or something to put a little shelf up there so that somebody trying to watch out the window can lean on it or set something down, set their phone down or their tablet or whatever. So anyhow, that'll be right above the mattress just a little bit. I'm planning on putting a 6-inch memory foam mattress, maybe even slightly thinner if I can find one. So anyhow, that's what's going on. I have the piece of plywood cut, hopefully the right dimension, and we've got pocket holes drilled along it. Those are going to screw into the shelf part there where the OSB clad insulation is. That'll kind of lock it in place. The first thing I'll do is move this bunk back a little bit, and then I'll be tucking the plywood up into there, and I'll shove the bunk back into place to make sure the plywood's straight, and then we'll do the screwing it to the 2x4 blocking that meets that piece of angle iron just below the bunk. And you can kind of see that right there. There's one block right there and one block over there. I want to make sure those are secure against the angle iron. I will screw the plywood into those up top, and then I will screw the plywood to this OSB at the bottom here. So that's the plan. I just want to make sure it's nice and tight. I've got this kind of drop down in. Now I've got to screw it to the blocks up top, push it in, screw it to the blocks up top, and then I'll push the bunk back in place and lock it into the plywood. After that, I'll screw the bottoms in to the OSB that's clad, or insulation clad with OSB there, with the pocket screws. So that'll hold the bottom edge. So it's working out. And now I have that piece of wood fully secured. I've got the bunk tight into it. And at this point, I can block in the bunk on the sides here. And from there, I can start building a wall to separate the driver area from the rest of the bus. And there's going to be bookshelf and climbing storage along with a sliding door. So I'm going to get at that right now. So I've got this sideboard up top here riveted in. I'll fill behind it with more insulation as I do the ceiling. And I got to come up here and weld these holes. You can see daylight in certain spots here where we cut the bus. So I'm going to move on down here and keep filling in the sides with wood. So now I've got this piece cut. I'm going to rivet it in place. And after that, I'll start working on these side pieces here. And after I've done that, then I can start building the bookshelf and the climbing shelf with storage, soft side storage totes kind of stuck in it. So now I've got that other side piece riveted in place. Now I can get off the bunk for a while. It's kind of cramped up here. Not the most fun to work. Be fun for a kid, but not an adult. So I've got this piece put in place. This is actually going to be covered up by shelving unit. There's going to be a support right under here going all the way down. And then similarly on that seam, that'll be a support for the bookshelf. There will also be that might be 2x6 because it's going to be a stop for the door as well. So I've got to go see what I have for 2x6 material for that. I think I have some shorter chunks I can cobble together to do that. So anyhow, I'm going to get at that right now. And then, well, maybe I'll cut a piece for this side actually first. Yeah, why don't I do that while I'm cutting plywood? So for that spot there, I've got a couple pieces cut, trying to minimize waste, so I'll use a little bit of wood filler to kind of smooth things out, but that's all going to be mostly hidden by the step units that I'm building for getting up into the bunk. So what I'm going to do right now is actually put the metal up so that I can put a piece underneath here So I'm going to put the perforated steel up, screw it in place. It'll be screwed on the edges so that it can be trimmed out and look nice. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I've got to paint it first. It's mint green right now. I just realized that. Okay, so I've got this piece laid out. Fortunately, where that circle is, I can cut 1/3 of it, and then I can cut 2/3 of it and miss the circle. And then I'll just have to trim where the wood is underneath to kind of cover up the cut line, but it'll look good when we're done with the trim on. So this evening I brought my small table saw over to the bus from my garage. We have other saws in the shop over here, but this one being very portable, kind of handy to put it right inside the bus for quick cuts. Of course, if I have to rip wood, I'm going to use the bigger saw or my circular saw with a guide, but this will save me a lot of in and out, of the bus as I cut little pieces for things. So anyhow, I'm going to get at it here. I'm trying to build the basic structure coming off the bunk to close it in at this point. I'm at the bus here again, and first thing I'm going to do this evening is wipe these down and hit them with a coat of high gloss white. Now, these pieces of perforated sheet metal are going to go under the bunk. Don't want them to be lime green, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm also going to build, for that platform in there, I'm going to build a plywood box step, actually 2 of them, to come down off the platform into the driver area. So I hit this with the wire wheel, wiped it down with a dry cloth just to get dust off of it. Now I'm going to hit with the spray paint. So that's painted. We'll let it dry. Then we'll be able to tack it up with screws at the bottom of the bunk. Ultimately, where the screws go will get trimmed. So right now I'm going to start building a plywood, 3/4 plywood box step. It'll be a little storage box and a step at the same time. And then build a longer one as the second step. So what I'm going to do is fill in this gap right here with the first step. It's going to be 9 inches wide, and then it'll drop down the other step. That will allow these to have the door going out over the top step, and that way it'll seal. And then the second step will come down into here. I'm going to cut back this thicker insulation right at the edge of the first step, or the higher step, and then the lower step will be starting at that point. We're going to take this insulation back out, and that'll be where that step goes. So just making a couple plywood boxes is what it amounts to. I've got the pieces cut here. This is the side support. I'm going to put a 3/4 inch plywood topper. There's going to be a center support and then a front support. And in the back here, I think what I'm going to do is drill some holes from behind to put a plywood lip in. I want this to be opened up into the... I'll probably put a little strip down at the bottom, but I want it to be opened up so if I need to do something like store a paddle board or something really long, skis, something like that, that I have a little extra length to lay those into the trapdoor. So thinking ahead for activities we might want to do. So at this point I've got 3 sides of this put in place. I've got the front piece of the upper step here cut out already. I just need to cut some blocks for the corners here on each side, and then we'll put it together. So I put some corner blocks in right on that side and that side. I'm about to screw this front piece in, and then there'll be a step, one step below this. So I'm going to drill some pilot holes and get this screwed in with a few, 3 on each side probably, screws. At that point we'll be able to set the top on. So I finished building this first step here. This top comes off for storage. Of course, there will be flooring put on this, and this trapdoor's got to get some adjustment. I got to actually, what I'm going to do is cut a smaller trapdoor in each of these and hinge them, but I'm going to fasten the remainder down to the steel frame from underneath before I put the middle supports made of wood inside. So that'll be a project for another day. So I've got that first step built, and I'm not sure how much more I'm going to do this evening. I might be heading out. What I'm doing right now is roughing in this bookshelf. This will get clad with some Luan or something thin, maybe even 1/4 ply. But for right now, that's going to be where the armrest is. It's the main support for the armrest, and there'll be some nicer wood over it, which will be the same wood I do the bookshelves out of. So I'll probably mount some power in here for that armrest. It'll come up from underneath the floor. So I plan to have USB charger power ports at each end of the couch and up in the bunk and in the driver's area. But those will all maybe even be on one circuit. So anyhow, I'm getting this roughed in. The door's going to close against this, and the door's going to have sort of a roof on it. It's going to be the same L shape as this, and it will slide over behind the driver's seat, covering up the bins, the soft side bins. All right, so roughing in that door jamb / bookshelf frame is where I'm going to quit for the night. So I got that higher step in place, and then that frame. Now I'm going to need to build the lower step and get the other side sorted out with the storage bins. I picked up that style of cloth bin at Walmart, 4 of them for this side. And what's going to happen is the door will kind of act like a closet door, covering those bins when we're not closing the door. So that's the idea. So I'm back at the bus. I actually just finished reframing this because buses are not square, and I forgot to measure a different measurement for the cross bracing. So I had to move this over at the top, and I had to shorten this cross brace and shorten this cross brace a little bit so that a door would actually be level up against this jamb here. So that's corrected. I think what I'm going to do now is build that front step. That'll make it easier to get in and out anyway while I'm working, so I want to go ahead and get that done. So I've got the basic box shape here cut out. This is going to be a little over 32 inches wide, but it's plenty to step on to get up in. It'll basically serve as a base for the door as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing screwed in place and get it built out. I'm going to cut a piece of 2-inch OSB foam for there, and then I'll drop in a bit of an insert inside made out of this thicker OSB here. So the basic box structure is built here. Now I need to build a lid, and then I'm going to trim this piece of foam to match the edge. Just got to draw a line around it and make some cuts, and I think I'll finish up the lid, and then I'll be done for the evening. Okay, so at this point we have the steps built here. That'll make it easier to get up in. They, of course, will get some wood flooring. I'm going to use wood filler to finish the edges, and we'll put some kind of a protective edge on the edge of, or some kind of a protective corner molding on the probably metal on the edge after I put the wood flooring down on this. So this will all get painted at some point, but for now it's roughed in, and this is a nice tight fit. This lid will be a storage area. I'm going to get it painted inside as well, but that fits in nicely. Oh, got wires tangled, that's the problem. Making a liar out of me. Okay, There it is. It's just a little snug, which is kind of what you want, but I'll probably reinforce the bottom a little bit more. So, trying to, with the price of lumber right now, I'm trying to conserve wood, so I've used 2 pieces here because there's going to be finished flooring on top. So, anyhow, that's where I'm going to stop for tonight, but I feel pretty good about getting these steps done. We'll try them out here. First time up the steps. And back down, we'll see how it feels. Yeah, that's not too bad. The actual floor height's going to be up at the level of that driver platform, so I've taken that into account with the measurements, but right now this first step is pretty high. It's probably almost, I'd say 9.5 inches up or more. So, anyhow, that's where we're at.